Spring sickness sucks. Excuse me. That's the first thing I want to say. So the rest of March was a fail. All of April was a fail. So here we are. Sunday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo Day, a day after May the 4th be with you. And I'm not totally sure what we should be talking about. So we're just going to So we just hit the record button. And we'll see what comes out of our mouths collectively. Mike, James, Kevin decide to sit around. And let's see what type of trouble we can get into in the next little bit. Okay, so here's the excuse for the last 2 months from my end. Not too long after we taped, or a couple weeks after we taped in March, I fell ill. Came down with a cold in late March. Pretty much lost my voice. My ex-girlfriend and my mother said it was the best I had ever sounded.
Oh, wow.
Although I'm pretty sure one of them still love me. I'm just not totally sure which one. Then in early April, after I got my voice back, I got sick again. And unfortunately for both my ex-girlfriend and my mother, I didn't lose my voice this time. So that's pretty much been the story for the last month and a half.
I almost got sick twice, but then I caught the cold quickly enough that meds just saved me.
That time? It's
both times, yeah.
Yeah, it's insanely frustrating because this is since roughly a year, over the last year, I could count. I've counted that I've gotten sick at least 5 times, but remember the first 2 times was in July of last year, and I got sick in 2 quick short orders.
Do you think your workplace is where you're getting sick?
You know, it did coincide with the move, with the expansion. I'll say that much. And we're going to get back, and this is not to slam work, and we're actually going to. I actually do want to bring up things going on there a bit later on.
Because I will say, only in the last maybe 2 weeks have I been more lax about masking, and I do feel like when the store that I work at is still busy enough, I will still put on a mask. Or if I hear my coworker sniffling, I try to put on a mask.
I've made that mistake because I got really laxed more than a year ago.
Because now we live in a world where people aren't going to question you for wearing one now.
I'm not well, I was about to say I'm not totally sure about that, but you're probably right.
Well, the people who care don't matter. As in the people who would make a fuss about it,
they
don't matter.
I understand where you're about to go with that. It took maybe 1 or 2 seconds to register where you're about to go. But I get it. Okay. But that's been the excuse, and I admit I've really, really lost touch with a lot of things. Actually, just before I fell ill, I tried experimenting also with some of the equipment that I want to use for streaming, the capture card, the stream deck, and didn't really get too far. So basically the experiments have to start over. And I think it was also the last time I turned on my PS5 to try out those experiments. So we're back at square one there, so to speak.
What do you mean by like? What do you mean by starting from square one? Like, did you try something that didn't work, or what?
I have to restart the just because I forgot everything.
Oh, okay.
I did at the time, and I have to relook and reread everything about setting all this stuff up. So yeah, that's where my back to square one bit comes, and honestly, some of the news, which we'll talk about some. Let's be frank, outdated news eventually, and then some of the stuff we're watching, which is also outdated. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that, but I think for the next little bit, just to get resettled back behind the microphones, and we're gonna try. And here's the promise I would like to make, although we'll see if we end up fulfilling it before the end. I would like to meet quota for May before Anime North. When we do Anime North, we'll surely meet quota, but I'd like to do it before. Although we're going to talk about Anime North for sure. Because I think for much of the next hour, I think we're going to go for an hour. I do want to talk a bit local. It is anime, as some people like to use it. But May is, of course, is a key month, of course. We for our fandom in Toronto. So, James, Kevin, where do you want to start first? Do we start with TCAF? Do we start with Anime North?
Might as well start in order.
Wait,
we might as well do TCAF since that's coming up in a week. So
I need to say something first.
Yes, before we go
first.
Okay, yeah, before we really start going, as I said, before we start the Toronto talk, the Toronto anime talk, let's talk just Toronto. Also, it is the morning after the Leafs have their annual elimination. It always seems to happen around this time of year, exactly around this point.
So yeah,
all right, let her rip, Kevin. I know you want to say this.
The Leafs lost again.
Yes.
To Boston.
Yes, again.
And that's to Boston again. Yes.
Everything will be punctuated with the word "again" at the end of every sentence. Go ahead.
Now, last year they did get past the first round, so there was that at least. Yet, the way they lost to Florida last year made that first round victory feel pretty hollow. And now, they once again did not get past the first round. And this is against a Boston team that is the weakest Boston team that the Leafs have faced in the playoffs yet.
In the last decade or so.
They don't have Patrice Bergeron anymore. They don't have Zdeno Chara anymore. And it's... I feel at peace in a way. And
hey, we're on the same wavelength there.
Because you were saying last night how you feel like you needed some time to recover from that loss, and I thought, like, aren't you? The back of my mind, I thought, aren't you already used to this, Mike? Because
it was. I think recovery was more just work as well, because I was just finishing work at that point too.
It's like when I saw that team lose, and I actually didn't really see them lose. It's funny. I watched the first period at St. Louis Bar and Grill because my sister wanted to watch Game 7, and we don't pay for cable anymore, so that's why we couldn't watch it in the comfort of our own home. And then we left at the first intermission. I went to go sourcing, actually. And then on the way home, I listened to the end of the third period on the way home.
Yes.
And
so
then
you heard the
yes.
That's
And
where I
then I actually decided to switch off for a bit. I listened to a VTuber in the car on the way home for part of it because I thought, oh, I'll eventually just switch back to the radio and I'll hear Joe and Jim talk again. Joe Bowman, Jim Ralph, for those who aren't into radio personalities.
the radio voices of the Toronto Maple Leafs, for reference.
I really do miss them on TV. But anyway,
That's another story.
I flip on the TV, not flip on the TV. I flip the radio back to 10:50 a.m. and the game was already over.
Right.
Because Pasternak scored with I think 2 or 3 minutes into overtime.
Less than 2, I believe. But yes.
Which kind of mimics last year for me, where I was at my cousin's place and we watched the game, and then I had to leave to go home, and then I was filling up gas, and then the Leafs made it to round 2 within that time span.
Well, okay.
But, the song Numb by Linkin Park just kind of plays in my head when this happens, because I really am just so numb to them losing at this point. It's kind of just, I think, I just sigh and then I move on with my life.
Cool.
And
it's almost time to do so,
Yeah. I don't know. I need them to. I need to see some change from that team, man. Like it's.
Yeah, that's the definition of insanity. Trying to run it back the same way, hoping for a different result, right?
Well, it's like we can't all be the Washington Capitals, because they ran it back several times as well before they finally won, and I think they did trade one of their core at that point too before they finally made it.
Let's check the history, but the thing is, I don't think the Capitals sucked that long for as many years.
I think it was like 6 or 7 max.
See, this is 8, maybe.
Yeah, 9. Like I expect them to not. The core will change definitely by next year. I don't know if it'll change this year, but next year it will change in some capacity because Tavares will be off the books.
And Marner would be too.
And Marner might be.
Key parts. Those are the key parts because the other two are locked up.
Yes, and the problem too is that Mitch Marner's no movement clause came into effect. So you would need him to waive it in order to get him to move.
And who knows? It doesn't feel like that he would. But thing,
And an interesting point was brought up on a Leaf Talk show that Sportsnet does over YouTube. This is the one they do. This is the one they do with
simulcast on radio.
Simulcast
on radio.
This is the one they do with JD Bunkus and crap.
JD Bunkus is, by the way, that's where I remember the Bible joke I always talk about. It's actually JD Bunkus's joke.
Oh, it's like JD Bunkus and like Sam McGee and Justin Bourne. There you go. Mm-hmm. They were bringing up, in theory, if they really did tell Marner, like, we don't want you back, they think that, there's a possibility that pride will come in the way and that they'll actually try and figure something out in terms of where to relocate him. Because I really do feel like Marner was the weakest player of those 4 this series.
Mm-hmm. Well, because he was healthy, for starters. And Tavares has a goal to show. And Nylander has 2 key goals to show.
And Mitch threw that tantrum too, which also does not look good on him.
Sorry?
And Mitch threw that tantrum in game 4 as well, which also does not look good for his public image.
All right. Matthews was sick for the middle games.
Yeah,
It's
honestly,
not an excuse, it's just-
honestly, I didn't want him to come back in Game 7.
well, hindsight's 2020, dude.
No, well, if you look at the stats, I think it was like before that game in elimination games where he's played for playoffs, it's 0-5. Now it's 0-6.
Oh, okay, fine. All right.
And then of course Will gets injured in Game 6 too.
Yeah.
In the literal last second of Game 6, and I'm just like, oh. But you know what? It's hard to blame Samsonov for that game.
That's the thing, I can't.
It's hard to blame him. I'd say it was more of
he was good. He was good enough.
Yeah, it was more. It's the public perception for that overtime goal. It was more so Marner and Riley's fault.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, I think I've ranted enough. I'm just like, whatever.
James, do you want to repeat what Utah said earlier? Or are you gonna? It's hard for you to do so now.
Well, I don't know, since I don't watch hockey and stuff like that. I'm not
Oh,
sure if that
yeah,
gets you kicked. I'm not sure if that gets you kicked out of this country or not now.
It's okay, James. I
only cheer for the Raptors and the Jays.
I'll tell you this, James. Ever since that Montreal loss,
Oh,
I thought back on this, and I thought, you know what? I have barely paid attention to any games since that series.
Way to twist the knife, dude.
Really? Like
okay.
I checked. I maybe check scores. Like I'll check standings, and I'll check I might check the highlight reels for the games, and that's maybe it. I haven't listened to any games on the radio until Game 7. Actually, no, you know what? I didn't even pay attention to hockey from November to March for the most part, except for maybe looking up news.
Well, that's just and ultimately that's where we
That's how worn down I am.
But no, it's also just the attitude of just a lot of Leafs fans. Okay, cool.
Regular season,
cool. Yeah, it's apathy. It's cool. It's okay. You're good enough to make the playoffs. Maybe not to get the greatest seed. Let's see what you can do in the playoffs, which has proven to be not the greatest amount over the past.
They're just trying their best.
Well, how many years?
That they said they're taking the fans for a ride, and then the fans should know they're going to take them right to the bottom and stuff like that. Yeah. They won those last two games just to show, so they could twist the knife a little deeper into their heart, like they always do.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want me to? Okay, where do you want to say something, James, or you want me to say what or did you? It really goes without saying for you.
Go ahead. You can say it there, Mike.
Mine was okay. Years ago, and this is as a Toronto sports fan, years ago, I learned not to get, I thought I learned not to be too emotionally invested in any Toronto team. Right. And okay, because the admission for me was, I was bummed after that game. I was, but sleep does some amazing things. So now I can actually be back to square one again, or where I said square one was. So I made this joke, and this popped up on my Facebook feed today. So I think it was the 11th anniversary after they blew their 3-goal lead against Boston again in a Game 7.
That was
even more excruciating.
That I think was the worst for me.
Yes. But I remember, the post said, reminded me, I typed, well, on the bright side, at least we'll never have to worry about a Toronto riot. Although I guess, at least related to sports, I think it happened with G20. But
it's they really do find new and creative ways to lose Game 7 every time. It feels that way.
Yeah. Anyway, so the
3-1, the giving up 3 goals in the third period, that series really was disheartening.
I get it. Yeah, that was so long ago, but so fresh, isn't it?
It was gut-wrenching.
Yeah. So
it truly made me believe we were cursed.
Still valid. Okay. There's just that, and I'll agree with you. I would foresee a change. It's just I don't know in what form. Could it be the president? Could it be the coach? Could it be any members of the core four? I get it.
I'm curious to see how Keith Pelly will react to this.
The head of MLSC, basically the top
new
dog.
head of
Yeah,
MLSC.
the new head of MLSC, the top dog of the umbrella organization, which also owns the Raptors and Toronto FC, etc.
Formerly one of the heads of Robbers, as I like to call them. Robbers.
Yeah. Well, he headed Rogers. He's played all sides in this because he was head of TSN as too.
Yeah,
he headed Rogers Sports and Rogers
media division.
The media division. So he was, I think, briefly president of the Toronto Argonauts too, and now he's part of the parent company of the Toronto Argonauts because MLSE owns them as well, or he heads it all up. So I that part I sort of get. So anyway, as I said, we're not a sports talk show, so. And we're already 20 minutes.
Marner. That's all I gotta say. Tavares can play out the rest of his contract, and it's fine. I don't mind him resigning for a lot less because he's definitely not as good as he used to be because he's old, and this was expected.
Yeah, at some point. So,
but I'm okay with ditching Marner. Anybody who shat on Nylander over the years is eating shit right now.
Yeah, he's the only reason.
Because Nylander was always the best playoff performer of the four, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
anyway. I'm done.
Cool. Okay, so let's go to the other part, to the fandom part of Toronto. Where do you want to start? Let's go TCAF first, Kevin, because that happens this weekend, next weekend, Mother's Day weekend, always tradition. What caught you? And I'll repeat it again. I've never done TCAF. I respect TCAF. You guys are more looking forward to this. What has your attention?
Last year, it was not on Mother's Day.
The final weekend of April last year, which was actually a nice change of pace.
Yeah, I agree. I would have rather it not be on Mother's Day, if only because I can see James for another day.
Well, that's cute. Okay. So,
no, truly though, like it's always nice to see James.
Yeah, because we remember, since we've started doing this show remotely, we don't always see each other face to face. So the times we do, the times we're able to get together in person for anything really, much less taping, is always cool. And back then it was the pandemic. This time now it's life. Yeah, and just been busy at work too. Okay, so what has your attention? What has your attention there briefly? What's worth bringing up concerning TCAF? Since I'm for a guy who is as I said, has a respect for it, but isn't really into it.
Well, for me, it's always going to be the Hmong, I guess, and this year, Kamome Shirahama is coming. And as you were saying earlier, James, she was supposed to come during 2020, and we all know what happened. So this is the redo, so to speak. She's the creator of Witch Hat Atelier, most famously as well. That's the main draw for me, as it usually tends to be for me for TCAF. I don't read too many Western or alternative comics for me to check out most other people, I'll be honest, but sometimes I'll poke into different panels and see what's going on too.
Or look at the different tables and stuff like that. It's always interesting to see the different tables because it's free to go in. So it's always interesting to see what the different creators are doing and stuff like that at all the tables on all the floors. And as you said, Witch Hat Atelier is the main one on the manga side. But I'm wondering if the other thing that could be a draw for her compared to other manga guests is she does freelance illustration, and they are promoting the fact that she did many cover illustrations for DC and Marvel and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, if it had been 2020, I would have had nothing to sign. But ironically, I think it was their first series, and Yen Press licensed it in 2020. So I'll at least have one thing to have her sign, which was NLA and De Wheel or whatever, which is it's like an angel and a devil just causing chaos for each other, so to speak, in the real world. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes and stuff with that. I know they have a panel for her, obviously, at Japan Foundation on the Mother's Day, and then I guess they'll have maybe another signing on the Saturday, and it'll be interesting then to go in and see the different tables and stuff like that. I know the other table, I know Dempa isn't there this year, but I know Glacier Bay, I believe, has a table this year from what I saw, and they're always intriguing to see what type of alternative manga and stuff from Japan they bring over, of course.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I haven't been paying too much attention to TCAP as well.
Okay.
I was thinking, I didn't realize that Shirahama created Eniele and Dewilla. I remember seeing the cover for that and thought it was pretty interesting, so I might actually try and check that out to see what I will get signed, actually.
Yeah, that one's like 3 volumes, and Yen Press licensed it. I think they probably had the inside track. That one, it was in Harta, and I believe that was one of the ones, because remember Katakawa bought out that manga publisher and stuff like that. I forget what if it was Harta was included in that, and that allowed them to get Kawamori and some of those type of series and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I guess
Yeah,
and they had some of those prestige stuff too.
It's a publisher. Who's the publisher? It was Enterbrain.
Enterbrain, yeah, there it was.
No Bright Story is Enterbrain.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, yeah, I would assume it's Saturday and Sunday for the signings. The schedule should be out by now.
The signing schedule will probably be up later this week and stuff like that.
So it's still not up yet.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Okay. So that's TCAF, basically, right?
I'm going to see if any other guests pop up.
All right. You're going to look that up? You want to start
right now? I'm on the TCAF site now.
Okay. Do we want to talk, when do you want to start talking Anime North? Or do you want to just continue on TCAF just for a couple more minutes?
Well, let me see what the guests are.
See what pops out at you?
Mm-hmm. There's nothing else popping out when I saw it. Like, they've had 7 rounds, but nothing else is really popping out. Some of them were names you've seen before and stuff like that. They do get returning people.
Okay.
And I think, what was it? It's kind of loosely related, but I think this month as well, VCAF, the Vancouver sister convention of this, happens in Vancouver at some point this month too.
Oh yeah, there's always something.
And I think I think the Vancouver Comic Arts Festival, I'm not sure, it probably is smaller, but probably not far off the size of what TCAF is now, I would assume. And they have this similar mantra, like bringing in different creators and allowing it to be accessible to people, so that it's like you're not paying for admission to get in, which is always a plus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Kevin, still looking?
Oh, Chester Brown's coming this year. Interesting. Oh.
Okay.
So is there anything there, Kevin, or should we move on to Anime North?
No, I noticed Chester Brown's coming this year. I know he's a bigger guest for sure.
Okay.
And actually recognize E.M. Carroll. Oh. Because every so often, like when I go to the library, they'll usually have the Western graphic novels alongside the manga, so sometimes certain names pop out to me.
Okay.
And I think I could have sworn Jillian Tamaki was coming too, but I don't remember. I could be wrong on that.
Okay. But TCAF happens next weekend. Jeez, that much time has passed already?
Oh, Adrian Tomine is coming too. Oh.
Okay.
Cool.
What else caught your attention?
Let's see. Yeah, I recognize Adrian Tomine from the library as well. Yep, Jillian Tamaki is coming. I did remember that correctly. Because I read Skim, so that's why I recognize Jillian Tamaki. All right. Yeah, that's about it. Those are the people that I recognize. Oh, Gene Yuan Lang's coming too. Ooh. Oh, that's cool. He created American Born Chinese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get where you're going with that.
And that actually got adapted on Disney Plus too.
Yes, well, because the adaptation starred Michelle Yeoh and Ke Huy Quan again. They were both in it. It only lasted a season.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're going to talk. We could end up talking a little Disney Plus in a bit too. Okay.
All right. Yeah, let's move on. I was just kind of perusing out of curiosity anyway.
Okay. I know we're doing this on the fly, folks. Anime North. Okay. Do we want to talk about our setups to this point, or do we want to go do the Nomi stuff? Just talk Nomi for a moment.
We can talk about guests and whatnot as well, because now that's finally those announcements are finally coming out as per tradition.
Yeah, usually the last month or so before the convention, right?
Yeah, like streaming out in April.
Like, honestly, those announcements should be coming out earlier. I hate to say it, and I'm saying this knowing that we're the official podcast of Anime North. Like, it's honestly it's tough. I know, like, you know, nobody's paid, but people got a plan to come here, man. Like.
Okay, so let's go through some of the lists so far that has been announced in, well, the last couple of weeks, let's be honest. And yes, this is sort of the MO for how we've gotten used to hearing the announcements, usually within the last couple months before the show itself, give or take.
But I will say, certain cons in the States that are bigger than Anime North don't do it much better, because I do feel like Otakon doesn't announce things that early, and then Anime NYC does not announce things that early either.
So this might be par for the course, kind of like the Leaf season.
Well, but I feel like Anime Expo does do things earlier. But I know nowadays, those cons, you have to buy your tickets early. Like it's similar to AN, where you need to buy it several months in advance, or a few months in advance. Or else
basically the main weekend lot usually sells out for all these type of conventions. It's not like you can just walk up like we used to. So it's not like you seeing those guests is going to make that change of decision, I think, for some of them.
Yeah.
They'll be there, however, and that's like, okay, who am I going to see and stuff like that, or what events do I want to do, right?
Yeah, you kind of just have to trust that, like, the venue will bring a guest that you care about, or you kind of just have to think, oh, hopefully you'll enjoy other things at the con, and then you pray that somebody you like enough will come to add to that experience. Because I've been toying with going to another US con this year, or going to a US con this year, and it's kind of tough because like getting a ticket is hard at this point, if not impossible. Or you have to just go through like back channels as in like secondary market.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
that's probably normal. It's like if it's a local con, it's one thing, as you say, Kevin. But if you're traveling and stuff like that, then yeah, it's like you probably want more of a reason to actually go to that convention, which changes the calculus, so to speak.
I wonder, you do have me wondering, how do the out-of-towners who come to Anime North, and I mean true out-of-towners, not Pickering.
Like people from the States?
Yeah,
or
people from outside of the Greater Toronto Hamilton area, or let's just narrow it down, Toronto. So so mainly 416 just outside 416. So basic 905. How do they feel about this convention? Like, is it that, like, where does it really sit on the social calendar? Where does it, like, is it still the must for them to secure that ticket really quickly? What's their motivation?
Depends on who you talk to. So I'm sure for many, it is one of the go-to things to do.
The gathering. And did I hit on it by saying social event?
Yeah. Like, there's certain friends that I see only during AN, and I'm sure that's the case for some of you guys as well. At the same time,
you're excused.
At the same time, you also have people who want something more professionally run, and that's why people are hoping that whatever incarnation of Anime Revolution comes out next year will be the thing that satiates them, because they're a for-profit con, so they're more likelier to get Japanese voice actors and Japanese performers.
More contemporary ones, right?
Current ones.
And I think they were fairly early in announcing most of their guests and stuff like that, from what I remember. The two cons they did do, right? So
Anime Toronto, and now, we'll see what becomes there. Okay.
Because from what I heard through the grapevine, the person who runs Anime Revo was the type of person who wanted to see those kinds of guests. So that's why he made the effort to make those connections in Japan that could then allow him better access to those kinds of guests.
And it seems to be working, goddammit.
And it's also because, you're for profit, so there's intrinsic motivation to do these things, because then you get paid. Whereas Anime North is a fan-run convention and is a non-profit. So who you get ultimately depends on the efforts of your staff who is not being paid to do this.
It's your or maybe just to be more philosophical, your DNA.
And truth be told, I don't know who gets paid at Anime Toronto / Anime Revolution anyway, so who knows?
That part.
I don't have all the facts, I'll be honest, but if you're thinking about it from just a common sense perspective, you think, well, yes, if my goal is to make money, I need to bring people in that will make me money.
Whether it's guests or workers.
Yes.
Okay. So, Anime North, let's talk. There's a guest list. The guest list of voice actors, some legendary Japanese ones, some well-known English ones, a couple of VTubers, a couple of industry types. one thing, just quickly, things that have already popped out to you among the guest lists so far. Or do you want me to start and then you tell me who pops out to you?
Well, it's cool to see Dokibird coming, although not surprised because we know she's Canadian.
You've mentioned being keeping up with Dokibird in the past.
I'm not going to be surprised if she's going to be on the grounds this year.
Okay.
Because whereas Phase Connect will be beamed in from the internet and from around the world, but knowing that she's Canadian and that she does like to buy fan merchandise from like artist alley vendors, it would not surprise me if she's going to be around.
Okay.
We don't truly know, of course, but it wouldn't surprise me. Because when she was Selene, that was something she did. As for Phase Connect, I don't actually know. I don't know a lot of these people, to be honest, because I don't follow Phase Connect because I don't watch this stuff on YouTube. Because they're all on YouTube from my recollection.
Yeah. Well, and as I said, we talked Dokibird earlier this year, so
they're bringing in 8 of them, they're bringing in 8 of them. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'll actually recognize a couple of them now that I see their names. I recognize Kaneko Lumi. And I recognize Kaminera Clara, but that's about it. That's interesting.
James.
I guess I'm intrigued that they're bringing another, people from a studio. So last year was Orange, and then this year they have Kinma Citrus. And they've been known for doing a lot of different things over the years. I know they put on their promo image Rising of the Shield Hero, but I know a lot of people also remember them from doing all the stuff behind Made in the Abyss for the 2 seasons in the movie and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see them, and it sounded like they did well with Orange last year and stuff like that, and that their panels were all full and stuff like that. So it sounds like seeing some of the creators that's popular, and it'd be interesting to see that side of it as well, not just the voice actors.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you in that it's good to finally see some staff representation as of late. Like every so often I would see anime studio guests popping up at different cons in the States, and I always thought, why can't we have that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that it's finally changing in that sense.
My turn?
Go for it.
You know where I'm about to go, I think. You guys know. Katsuji Mori, Mari Shimizu are likely not names that a lot of younger fans will recognize. And I'm not even sure their most famous roles sometimes are something that a lot of younger fans may or may not recognize. Although maybe when you've been associated with titles like Speed Racer and Astro Boy, people should. And those are obviously those are probably the most famous roles these the Japanese Seiyu guests of honor have been associated with, having the lead roles in those 2 titles. So I like these are the type of guests that I know our old friend Dave Merrill would be really into. These are the type of guests I know our old friends Matt Alt and Fred Schott would be really into. And these 2, you don't know how many chances you'll get now to see either of them, because I think both of them are over 80 now.
Oh, they're actually over 80?
Yeah. Yeah, both of them, I believe.
Let's see. Katsuji Mori, he'll be 78. Actually, no, he's 78. And
Okay,
then,
80-ish, give or take.
because I'm just looking at ANN now,
Mhm.
and
Mari Shimizu?
Mari Shimizu.
I think she is over 80.
Let's see. I'm mental mathing right now. She is 87? Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we can split the difference. Cool. So yeah, so my point stands. That's where we are with Mori-san and Shimizu-san.
Yeah, so Mari Shimizu is Astro Boy.
Mhm.
Or Adam.
Mhm.
I'm trying to see what else she did. Oh wow. Not too much actually, but
Not too much that now would be recognizable, right?
she's in Voltron as well. Oh.
Oh yeah. Okay, so she was in the Japanese Beast King Go Lion, right? So
Prince Aller.
Mhm.
That's cool.
So, yeah, these are some. It's a pretty cool resume when you look at it. But that's those are the.
Let's see. Katsuji Mori was Joe Shimomura, which I think is 09.
Mhm.
And then let's see. I'm just trying to see the ones that stick out to me.
Aside from the obvious.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah, Gotcha Man. Oh yeah, Gotcha Man.
Yeah.
There you go. Ken the Eagle.
Ken Washio, yep.
And Garma. Mobile Suit Gundam.
And was in Gatchaman Crowds too. Interesting.
Yep. So these are, these are historic. These are historic names.
Oh wow, he was Polnareff in the JoJo OVA.
Like I said, people can really understand where we are.
Oh, and he's Wolfgang Legend of the Galactic Heroes too. Nice, the original Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yeah. So that's probably the one that's intriguing to me.
He's Garma as well in Gundam. Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there's what sticks out among the guests to this point, and who knows how much I'll be able to see myself. But there you go.
I was seeing Rose of Versailles as well.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm wrong. These are titles a lot. Perhaps a lot of our fandom, even if they're young, would be able to ultimately recognize. But that's what's already stuck out to me. Okay, so before we really stop with the AN talk, I do want to peel back some of our preparations for Anime North as well. Just a little bit. Some of it, personal stuff. Some of it, stuff that's related to some of the programming as well. So, once again, full disclosure, we've done stuff there.
Oh wait, we didn't bring up the musical guest, did we?
Oh, okay. Do you want to go there? Let's bring up the musical guest. Musical guest of honor is
Mad Kid.
Oh,
they did Shield. They did the Shield Hero song. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. People will know who they are then. A lot of people watched Rising the Shield Hero.
So there you go. James, you got. So let's go back a little bit. James, you ready?
Sure.
Because James is the programmer of an all-night track at AN. We've told that history already. Everyone's ready there on your end.
Yeah, we're still doing that like we do every year and stuff like that. And it's just a matter of seeing how, because they still have video content. So if you come to the video rooms, there's still some different anime showing. They have some classic tracks, I believe, and some more, obviously, more of the general rooms are for the more recent stuff. And the general night track, it all depends on what they're showing in the other rooms. But I try to show a mix of genres and stuff like that. But it all depends who pops by. But there's still people I know during the daytime that show up to the video rooms and stuff like that. And that's near some of the panel rooms too in the Delta.
For us, podcast wise, yes, the tradition for this podcast is we've in recent years, well, originally in version 1 and since the beginning of version 2, we've taped 2 episodes there annually. And in March, around the time I got sick, just before I got sick the first time, by the way, I heard from Norm and just said, "You're ready." And I replied, and I'll be honest, and I replied, "We're ready, willing and able for the usual." And that was it. So it does have me wondering a little bit. I haven't really heard from them since. But we've had a version of this conversation, I think, both publicly and privately, and we've always stated the way Anime North is. I think I've jokingly referred to it as a happy mess. It's a convention where really every segment of the convention, every department goes off, does its thing for much of the year, and then gets back together to make sure to coordinate it and put it and piece it all together into something that everybody who comes to it will enjoy. But it is a case a lot of the time where, everybody is just left to their devices throughout the year.
The way Jesse Beveridge always said it
when he came on,
how I remember it. Yeah, how it seems as if the con is just held together by several strands of duct tape.
Yeah, I was just stopped short of saying that and wondered if I should, and you did. And I guess that's a fair and I always thought of it as a fair statement.
It's okay. I'll be here to make those statements. It's all good.
Thank you.
The con compared to other cons where it's like, remember at one point, and you would have thought it would have changed sooner, but remember, since last year we had 3 like different venues, and sometimes you'd have another venue in case they had Cafe Nocturne being in one of the other things, or the Golf Lolitas being in another hotel. But they had like a lot of different spots compared to other conventions. But it seems like this year they've started to bring things together and stuff. So basically your con is going to be in that central area, because it looks like they've taken both the north and south building fully for the Congress Center, and then all of the Delta across the way, the hotel. And then all the stuff from Sheridan that was across the bridge, the gaming, and I'm guessing the manga library and all that stuff is all moving to join the other stuff. And a lot of the gaming stuff is moving to the North Building, and the game shows are there now and stuff like that. And then one part, the retro gaming that they had a room for, that's going to be in the hotel. And you never know, maybe some other things will be in the hotel, but a lot of this stuff is moved over to the North Building for the panels and stuff like that, for gaming and things like that.
So yeah, in the James, for reference, did show me a map of what the planned layout could be like inside the Congress Center. And
they definitely, like, a lot of it looks the same and stuff like that. Like, your dealers and stuff like that are going to be in the South Building, and F&G, which is the end there. And I think they had changed it before, like a few years ago, and I just forgot about it, is that the registration is now happening in the North Building, which I guess makes it easier and stuff like that to get things moving. And then all the other things, like, it was interesting. I noticed that near the front, they've been putting a lot of those making use of the convention rooms and stuff like that for the guests and stuff like that, instead of having them at the hotel, the bigger guests, which seems to have worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, that's a fairly recent thing.
And then what was it? They had they're adding a little more space, it sounds like, for the artist alley and stuff like that. And I guess they're going to try and revamp it because I guess they want to make it as wide and good for people going back and forth on that end. And then they took away the industry area, isn't actually WIF or industry booths as they call it. They never had really many of them, but they took them away from the dealer's room near the front doors and actually seemed to have put them closer to the other end. And they said in Hall A and B and stuff like that, which is near where the additional artist alley is. Then they're having the kids area and stuff like that. So that's just in between that middle part where the main artist alley is, and then the convention part where they have the panels and stuff like that. So it's interesting. It's on the other end of where you guys normally are. The Nomanoichi is still in the same spot, which is Hall C.
And that's
where they have the concert and the dance as well on the other days.
Yeah, and where Nomanoichi is, right? So.
Yeah. And then the ballroom, obviously, is where they do the opening and closing, and they do main things like Anime Hell on Friday night.
Which, of course, will happen at the same time when we're supposed to be doing night one of our taping. So,
and then INH is, as I said, they've put a lot of the video game, the tabletop gaming, the LAN gaming, everything is together along with the game shows and the gaming panels.
North building.
I'm not sure, so I'm guessing the Yaoi and the Yuri is probably then going to be in the Delta. And so is the manga library if they bring that back as well.
And we'll learn, as I said, we're going to learn a little bit more. We're getting close, so the provisional schedule we can expect to see out. But now that I've said it, with the initial contact, and we have operated. Well, there hasn't been much to operate, but we've operated as usual. So we probably are going to be there for our traditional late evening tapings on Friday and Saturday. At least I haven't been told otherwise. But that's where our prep is for Anime North. Although but James just brought up something else, and of course, Kevin, it's near and dear to both of us. The Nomanoichi. Upshot is both of us have tables at this point. That's the upshot. Although you won't find either of us, if you're looking for either of us, we'll be scattered throughout it. Where in past years we were actually beside each other. So here's the thing about Nomi. Have you started to list any items you're selling there, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay. I have not, obviously. Because you know my MO. Always last minute. And just plain been too busy to do so. So, but thank goodness maybe with the time, with some of the free time I have, I'll start rummaging through and put up something. And this is, I'm going to give you an honest statement, okay, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
There is a small part of me that was hoping I would have lost out in the lottery this year. A small part. Because I would have been able to focus more on preparing for the podcasts. Because as it is, and this is what's happened in the past couple of years, I come in fairly late, like in late afternoon, to do what's really just a couple hours at the Nomi, and then I have to pack up and then put my Nomi stuff away, whatever I didn't sell. And I am noticeably lighter afterwards. But then I have to go back and then drag my equipment, the podcast equipment, to the hotel. And sometimes that that walk, dragging the podcast equipment, is from the Toronto Congress Center parking lot across the street into the Delta.
Really? Why?
Because I could never get parking inside Delta.
Oh,
That cheese
I thought they'd give you access though.
I was able to get it last year, so that situation will probably be a little different this year. I hope. So that's
what I'm thinking. Like, if you have access, you should use it.
It's complicated, let's say.
Mm.
At least, or at the very least, I make it complicating. So I'll save that conversation for after I hit the end record button. And once again, it's encouraged that people come out to watch the shows live. So that's sort of how it's going to work. Kevin has always has already made his annual offer to pop by and help me rummage through through my storage. I'm taking him up on that, but there's still other things going. Life happens. So hopefully, Kevin and I will be able to meet up, and we'll unlock the door downstairs, and we'll take our annual dive through the area. But that's where it all is. So Anime North is from, as of this taping, 2.5 weeks away. If my math is correct, and it isn't always. Am I correct in saying that? Just under 3 weeks, 2.5, something like that.
Yeah, it's under 3 weeks at this point.
Yeah,
technically under 3 weeks.
May 24th, 25th, and 26th. So that's where we are. That's where everything stands for us in our prep for Anime North. As I said, we're operating as normal. It's just some things we don't all totally know about either. Some things to look out for, though. And James actually brought this up, and now I'm going to relate it as well to what things I've observed as well. During, what is it, March break, was it?
So it's the end of March break. So it would have been, I'm just trying to see. So that probably would have been I want to say 16th and 17th is what I want to say in March. So end of March break at the Toronto Convention Center. It's like Fan Expo used to do a weekend anime convention, right? And then over the past, I guess, 10 years or whatever, what they did is they retooled those smaller cons. So they still do that March break convention for the 2 days, the Saturday and the Sunday, except it's basically, they call it Comic-Con. So it's for everything now. So comics, for sci-fi, for anime, and everything together. And they do it just in the North Building and stuff like that, right where they did the Toronto anime stuff. And they've always done that. But yes, there was an interesting article about this year's Toronto Comic-Con and stuff like that. And it was well attended, I guess, like they have for the others. But they said, and it's funny, I don't think, as I told you, Mike, have heard about this as much at the conventions over the years. But at this version of the Comic-Con, and they even had an article on CP24 and stuff like that, talking about attendees saying that multiple phones were stolen at the convention this year for Toronto Comic-Con and stuff like that. And they were talking to vendors, they were talking to attendees and stuff like that. And they said the security seemed very nonchalant about stuff like that. Like, it's just kind of happening or par for the course and stuff like that, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah, those articles, I remember reading those articles at the time, and there's a part of me that just, much like a Leafs playoff defeat, just felt not surprised. But the news sort of hit a little home when I found out that one of the people I supervise at my work fell victim to that. He was at he spent the weekend at the Comic-Con and had his phone stolen. And he told me he was taking extra shifts at work so he can buy a new phone at some point. So there's the hit home part of it. And I guess it's just cautionary now, or at least something to brace for, or guard against, for people coming to Anime North at the end of the month, and maybe even TCAF. Let's be honest. So these are, things to be to look out for as the convention season really starts to ramp up in May. But yeah, that's kind of a sad thing to hear. Borderline disgusting, I guess. But yeah, that's what we're looking at. This is what we're all preparing for as May goes along. Boy, it's hard to believe we're already into May though in 2024. The last couple months have been just a whirlwind. It really is a shame that we have not had a chance to tape anything over the last 2 months. But we've been, as I said, we've just been busy, and we haven't all kept up with everything that's happened over the last number of months, but there's maybe one or two things. One thing you were looking forward to watching, or a news or any piece of news that caught your attention over the last 2 months. James, Kevin, just one thing you want to bring up before we go? Or should I just throw one that I know James wanted to bring up or brought up? And
you can go first. Let me see if I can think of something.
I can throw some things that might interest you, Kevin, and stuff like that. It's like the small one I know. I think it was either earlier this week or the past 2 weeks. There was news about the Tsukihime remake. Did you hear about that, Kevin? And
what, that they're censoring the art book on the PS version specifically?
Yep. So being released by Aniplex, which is a Sony-owned company, on the PS4 and Switch, and it's on the Sony console version that they're censoring 2 images in the art book, only in the art book, on the Sony version, but the Nintendo version, they said it's all fine because it's within ESRB guidelines and stuff like that because they've rated it mature. But even if they aren't censoring the game, it still feels ridiculous that they're censoring the art book for just 2 images. Like, it makes no sense to me at all, especially given the rating and all that. But I was just shaking my head. But for us, it doesn't matter. We both got the Switch version, but you would feel bad for someone who probably is getting the PS4. But I'm sure that's going to mean there's going to be a lot of canceled PS4 versions, right? If they know that the other version is untainted, right?
It's really weird.
I know. Like, definitely the oddest thing I've heard. Like, we've heard obviously about Sony and more Steam as well. Remember about their thing against certain anime type games and stuff like that, and their stronger censorship stance and stronger thing of we don't want to have this. But then you look at certain Western developed games, it's like we're all for this, but it's like, well, why are you all for it here but not here? It makes no sense. But to see it go this far where they're saying the whole entire game is fine, but 2 images in the art book are not fine, and I'm trying to think that I haven't seen one where physical art book has had to actually be manipulated in a thing. Like, you never know, maybe it's happened before and we haven't heard about it. But this is the first time that someone they got ahead of it. So I guess because people would notice once they receive them, right? Mm-hmm. So they probably were like, okay, we'll get ahead. But it is definitely odd. But I know obviously Skullgirls is the one a lot of people are saying, but that one was a digital art book. And that one was unfortunate because they took the digital art book that customers had already paid for and basically updated it with whatever their new version or their new vision of the art book was. And that ticked off a lot of people. And that's the closest I could think of and stuff like that. But it's still ridiculous. And it actually almost makes me think of the other one this week where it was limited run games. And they had another little oopsie moment and stuff like that, where limited run games has its problems and stuff like that. But they decided they've done like retro cartridges for Game Boy games, all this other stuff. So this week they finally released for these collectors these two games, D, and I forget what the other one was, but it was for the 3DO console. And the 3DO console is a disc-based console, just to let you know. So when people received it, some of them couldn't play it on certain versions of the 3DO for these two 3DO games because they found out, and some of them when they were testing the discs, they weren't actually pressed discs. They were actually DVD-R or CDR discs, that burn disc that you would get almost from Office Depot or something like that. And they're just like, hey, these people paid a premium for packaging and all this other stuff. They expected a press disc and stuff like that, and they had to come out and say they were investigating. Who knows if they're going to? It sounds like they might try to get repressed and then properly and get it to people, but they were kind of throwing shade at their person that was replicating the disc for them. But it still did not look good because there had been no mention in those two pre-order campaigns that it was going to be on CDRs.
That's kind of like getting a Street Fighter anniversary huge box set and then realizing it's all digital codes.
But as some people said, yeah, there's some people that get these things from Let It Run. They never open it up. But if you're thinking about it, this was for a niche console, the 3DO. Not many people are obviously going to get stuff like that. And some of those people probably might actually open up and play it. And they're actually your most fervent fans and stuff like that. So, you know what? You probably better get right because they're going to be vocal if something goes wrong. Kind of just like Tsukihime happened that we talked about a moment ago, right?
Well, okay. Kevin, or have you thought of anything? You can pass today too, because as I said, maybe we'll get a chance to talk a little bit later this week too.
Trying to think. I actually was looking at the guest announcements, because they're doing a Hollywood Squares kind of panel thing on the Saturday, and it looks like they're using V4 Mirai VTubers.
Yeah, they're using VTubers, which makes sense in a way.
So it's not the Phase Connect ones. So V4 Mirai is a separate company, and I know they debuted some new talents earlier in April. So that's kind of neat. But that wasn't actually what I was thinking of. That just randomly popped up in my head. Did any of you catch the Animigo town hall by any chance? I missed that.
Okay, I knew about it, but I think I was working.
I did catch it and stuff like that. So basically it was Justin going over what he had been going over before and stuff like that about his plans for the future and stuff like that. He said that the Media OCD, their site and stuff like that, they had a soft launch, and what they're doing is the live action line that he started, Whole Grain Films or whatever.
Yeah, that debut release just came out.
That just came out. So he basically has set up a storefront and stuff like that. And so the Whole Grain pictures and then Anime Ego, some of that stuff is there on the storefront. He also announced, I forget what it was like an art book. And it was an interesting one from a Japanese creator that they got some of that as a special item to sell through there. And as he said, if you buy through there, it'll support them even more and stuff like that so they can get more licenses. And then the other thing is for some releases in the future for probably Anime Ego, and they're doing it with Whole Grain Pictures right now, is that you'll get a slipcover from them if you order through them. But obviously, if you order from regular Amazon, stuff like that, there won't be a slipcover. And then they were saying, we know people don't like their slipcovers dinged and stuff like that. And so they said the people they partnered with for that, you're going to have the Blu-ray and stuff like that in the case, but then the slipcover is going to be flat. So it's going to ship flat so that hopefully nothing happens to it and stuff like that. And then obviously you just unflatten it and just put it over your Blu-ray. Makes sense. That can happen in shipping. I haven't had too many problems with that, but I know some people get very unlucky with that and they get dings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they were talking about is obviously a lot of the so Bob and his wife and stuff like that, they probably still got to finish the Macross 2 Kickstarter. They're got, I think, maybe one or two more Kickstarters in the can, stuff like that, and they're going to be fully on those. And then, as Justin said, I'm not going to be doing any Kickstarters because I don't want anyone to be confused with anything Bob has left to do. And he said for all the Kickstarters they had done, they sometimes have leftover like Blu-rays and things like that. So they want those to be gone through before they do a general release. So I think one that had just finally finished up was Riding Bean, which was a classic Anime Ego title. So they're going to do a general release of that. And that's going to be probably one of the first ones that Justin's going to do as owner of Anime Ego. And they showed like, okay, this is what the cover and all that stuff is going to be. It's going to be a new pressing and stuff like that done by Media OCD. And then they'll release it. And then it's probably going to be a little cheaper, as he said, because it's an older release. And we've had a lot of people. And then people were asking, because he said all that, they asked about Gunsmith Cats, because yes, Gunsmith Cats has sold all its stuff and things like that. But supposedly he said something happened, I guess, in Japan, and they're unable to like retain the rights or stuff like that. So unfortunately, it's a no-go, which is unfortunate. So I guess Robert got lucky on that one and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. So having finally read Gunsmith Cats, it's kind of interesting to see how passionate that fan base is, because like if you try and find Gunsmith Cats stuff, like either the old Dark Horse releases or like the anime, yeah, you can't find it anymore, and people charge a lot for it.
Yeah, so I think even the omnibus ones, the ones they redid, are on a print too now, I believe, as well.
Yes, they are. I sold my set for a lot of money. I'll tell you that much. Like a lot of money.
But I know as well, like supposedly Justin, like he went to Japan, he was talking about that, and he said he's trying to get the feelers out, and that Bob's wife, I think Natsumi, was guiding him around, and he actually got to meet Kenichi Sanada and stuff like that in a coffee shop, a dark coffee shop. Cool. He said it was a fantastic meeting that he had for over an hour and stuff like that.
That is cool.
But he was enjoying it. He said he's got some feelers out. He says he's got his list, and people obviously wondered because obviously Discotheque and stuff like that, they're still working with them. And he says, I have my list. He says, we're not going to try and step on each other's toes and stuff like that. And he said, if it works out, then I'll basically try and get some of the ones I want. And he said, the plan is I want to make this more of a business, because obviously Robert and Natsumi, they went the Kickstarter mall, and they kind of, once the crash happened, kind of, it wasn't the same Anime Ego it was before. It was kind of like dormant, so to speak. So he wants to make it run as a business and get that profit. And he said to get there, I'm hoping to get one release a month, maybe starting next year. We'll see how it goes.
It did get to the point, I felt, where it seemed like with Robert and Natsumi that they already had made their money, and then Roberts probably still has like wizardry stuff happening every so often, so then like they were more or less okay. And like it just seemed like by doing the Kickstarter model, it was a way for them, like from an outsider's point of view, it seems like it was a way for them to keep busy. But then obviously I don't know, who knows, right?
And they've done that model before Kickstarter even existed. They did it with the original Macross and stuff like that, where it's like, hey, we need to sell this many so that we can then get it out the door for certain DVDs. So they had done that before. Obviously, that's not going to be something that Justin's going to be doing. He said, as he said, we're going to do classic anime, but we'll be going up to 2010 and stuff like that. And he said, obviously, we're going to be looking at shorter series and stuff like that. And obviously, for some stuff, he doesn't mind doing SD Blu-ray like he's done for Discotheque.
Yeah.
He said, I know people talk about dubs and stuff like that. I knew what the answer was, and it's a pretty straightforward answer. He says, we don't have the resources or the money to do dubs and stuff like that regardless of the length of the series. He's like, I took a hit just buying Anime Ego, and now I got to build this up from scratch along with whole grain pitchers and stuff like that, and then make those relationships.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing that's 2024. And then he's hoping that all this will bear fruit, so that hopefully in 2025, he's hoping to do one release a month for Anime Ego at least, and then a few releases on the whole grain pitcher side. And he's already made some of those deals, as you said, for whole grain pitchers, since they already have one out already that came out recently, which was, I think it's Not Enough Sleep is what it's called. It's
Yeah,
an indie movie.
sounds like it.
Yeah. I've always stated a great respect for Justin Zemeckis. So that just adds to it.
And I think the other thing he had talked about, and he said in a few recent tweets, is he had been doing for the last few years, going around to different people in the American anime industry from when we knew it in the aughts and stuff like that, because he wanted to do a documentary and stuff like that. And he says that kind of fizzled because of how I'm going to sell and stuff like that in the era of streaming. And now he's been thinking about it after buying Anime Ego, because that went on the back burner when he did that. And he said, you know what? I can still use all this film and stuff I've done, but he says, I got to figure out how I'm going to do it and stuff like that. But he might do it through Anime Ego to use some of that footage to kind of be like this mecca for like the knowledge of the past, so to speak. You know what I mean? In some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's just interesting to see, you know, how the older companies are trying to figure themselves and figure their way through the new normal of fandom and the industry now. So
and sometimes it's just trying to press those discs and stuff like that, because if you look at Discotech, and he had talked about that in other tweets, obviously outside his Anime Ego stuff, is that I guess depending on trying to get them pressed and all these things, they've had to change it up a bit, because instead of going monthly solicitations, they've kind of went bi-monthly. So after March, they are having releases this month in May, and then they did solicitations a week or two ago. They skipped June and then had some releases in July and stuff like that. So it was bi-monthly and 8 releases bi-monthly, but they said they'd have to do that for a bit, just, you know what I mean, to keep the schedule going, I guess, with the replicators.
yeah, makes sense.
Which isn't too surprising. It's like, because it's kind of this give and take, I guess, now, especially in the world of streaming.
On that topic, and since you brought up the IP earlier, the one story that caught my attention is Macross. So Disney, most of it's on Disney, or exclusively on Disney. But it's always, the devil is always in the details of that one, right? So
they actually had a list there too, Mike, just to let you know.
Yeah, I did. I was aware of it. It's just, what's the upshot is, yes, nearly all of Macross will be streamed worldwide on Disney Plus. But, right? And there's the but, right? The actual Macross titles listed outside of Japan is pretty much everything except the original series outside of Japan. In its place is Robotech. And it's the other way around when you talk Japan. The original series will be streamed there.
That's not surprising.
It is.
No, it's Harmony Gold. That's all it is.
Yeah,
that's why we still don't have Do You Remember Love? That's why that movie is the exception to the Macross release, is because of Harmony Gold.
Mm-hmm. You know this is not sitting well with a lot of people.
Well, anybody who has followed this over the years is not surprised, but to those who maybe are just getting into Macross or had just discovered Macross, then yes.
Well, yes, not surprised. Kind of like leaves elimination.
Well, we'll see how it goes, because they said distributed by the end of 2024, and then we've seen how anime and Disney Plus works, because they've had a lot of different anime pass through, but it feels like they haven't got the numbers, or maybe they don't tell us the numbers compared to the others, and maybe that's because they're focused on their own properties regarding Star Wars, Marvel, and the Disney stuff, right? The Disney Vault.
You know, the good thing with this announcement is that I do expect to see a new Macross within 2 to 3 years.
Like just something under the IP?
Yes. So I had a friend who went to Japan this year, and apparently Walkure, which is the lovely ladies that were featured and sang a lot of the songs for Macross Delta, they did their final concerts.
Mm-hmm.
So they now need to spend the time to find a new singer that they can use for the new series, a theoretical new series, because we are overdue for a new Macross. And they'll probably need to, do the usual, figure out what we're going to do for the story, figure out how we're going to do merchandise, blah, 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 get Pony Canyon involved. I think it's Pony Canyon. I don't remember who it is. I always forget who no, it wasn't Pony Canyon. It's whoever, like, the music company is that for years was not putting their stuff up on Spotify, but basically they have to do that whole thing from scratch now. And I feel like now that you have Macross for streaming, at least there's going to be more brand awareness. And that's only a good thing.
You hope. You hope.
But oh my god, please make a better story. Delta was really not that good story-wise.
I was about to, and here's my zinger for the end of this. On the end of this topic. Yes or no, Kevin? I have 2 versions of the original Macross series on DVD. The Animigo version, the ADV version, which, and we know about, and going back into the history archives concerning the ADV version, features the voices in the English dub, which was English dubbed. I'm sure many know that now. Of Vic and Marie Ajima.
Oh, Vic Mangina was
yeah, he was the main character.
He played Hikaru in that.
Oh,
in that dub. And there's
I did get I don't have the Anime Ego, but I do have the ADV version. It's quite an extensive version. It had extensive extras and stuff like that, because Matt Greenfield was the one that directed it. So
yeah, and I think my version is sealed of the ADV version.
Mm-hmm.
Is that worth something?
I'll buy them off of you.
It's probably worth something, I'm sure.
I'll buy them off of you, Mike.
I'm not that desperate for money either. But that's worth.
I want it for myself.
Which version? Anyway.
I actually lean towards the Animigo version nowadays.
Huh?
I would actually lean towards the Animigo version.
It's interesting because Animigo did it in 2 flavors. So they did it as a single box and then three mini boxes. It's the latter I have of that.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting that out there. Anyway. That's the story that stuck out to me in the last 2 months. I will also say, in terms of what I would like to watch, hopefully, or read in the next little bit, has anybody read any reviews, or much less watched the live action City Hunter that came out on Netflix?
No,
okay. But I've heard good things. I hear.
I saw the little preview that Netflix puts up, and it looked pretty true.
Just on those couple the actor seconds. Got both parts, because remember, you have the serious and then you have the campy part, right?
He knew how to play. I saw that campy part. It was a campy scene, and it was hilarious. And I thought, he might have nailed it. I'm not totally sure because I'm not that well versed in City Hunter, but he might have nailed it. And that's a watch for me. And I did get the final volumes of Kaguya-sama as well which was released over the last number of months. And, I did stop reading it at a point because I just did not want to cliffhanger myself. Now I can just finish that. So those are that. And there is still my, remember, and I made that joke, or I talked a little bit some months back about having trouble renewing my Crunchyroll subscription. I still have yet to do that. And with the price increases announced on the upper tiers, how long ago, James? A little over a week ago?
Yeah, a little over a week ago. But the main one that we all subscribe to is still the same price, and it's still at $99.99 Canadian
for the year.
For a year. But we'll see how that goes. But I don't think, even when it was cheaper, I still don't think there was a value proposition to go to those higher tiers for us outside the US and stuff like that, because they're still not going to give us free shipping. There is some sort of weird discount. They talk about this game vault for the ultimate tier and stuff like that, but a lot of it was like, it just didn't work. The math didn't work for me.
Anything for us up here, right? So, and what is it? Offline viewing as well. That's in the upper tiers, but if you have a half decent plan or constant Wi-Fi, okay. And so there's where we stand on that. And the other thing you should know, James, the trial is no longer 14 days; it's down to 7.
Wow, I know. What was it? They said, what was it? I know that High Dive, they've revamped their thing. They're still got things to fix with this new revamp, but I know they took off the what do you call it? The how you could create different profiles for different people. So they took that off High Dive, but funny enough, Crunchyroll was promoting that in April because they added that you have different profiles and stuff like that, which kind of was making me think about, how Disney Plus is saying the same thing as Netflix. And I wonder what the numbers are for Crunchyroll of people that share their accounts and stuff like that. I wonder if that's another thing that'll come down the pipe one day and stuff like that. Because I wonder, especially since it's a younger demographic, I wonder how many people share their accounts for Crunchyroll.
Well, we'll find out. It's coming down the pipe for Disney Plus, obviously, later this year. Netflix has been happy with how theirs has gone. And for reference, and this might be throwing myself under the bus. Yes, I shared it, and I shared it with somebody very close to this show. Who do you think I'm referring to when I say that? Right. So, and I know Neil does watch quite a bit. So, but thus far the dodge has been okay there. I'll also say that much. But I've seen the attempts as well. So we'll just continue as is.
But the other one, thinking of Crunchyroll, it's like they definitely had a lion's share of this season for spring that I was watching. And I guess of note that was interesting from this season, which was interesting, is that there's some interesting retooling. So they have bartender and stuff like that. That's only going to be sub only, but basically it's a retelling, even though it was done 20 years ago, and it's been interesting. But the other one that was intriguing is, so they have the continuation of Black Butler, but Spice and Wolf was interesting in that instead of continuing on, they started right back at the beginning.
Yeah,
Spice and Wolf, and I'm watching it, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I still would rather they have just continued on. I don't understand why they went back to start at the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, I love the animation studio they got and stuff like that. It's the same one that did the Higurashi reimaginings, those 2 seasons. And those ones, I'm like, okay, I can understand Higurashi doing the reimaginings and how they did that. But this one, it's kind of like for Spice of Wolf's case, it's like they just went back and said, we're doing it again. And I'm like, but why? And Bartender, I can kind of understand. Black Butler, they just went to the new season, which makes sense. But Spice and Wolf, I thought they would do the same as Black Butler instead of just going back to the beginning. It's just intriguing. And they're dubbing it and doing the same voice. They brought back the 2 main voices for that too, so it's even more interesting.
Yeah, they brought back Lucian Callan, yeah.
Correct.
I was gonna say though, if I'm not mistaken, James, so I initially thought the same. I was like, why wouldn't you just continue from season 2? But if I'm not mistaken, when they adapted Spice and Wolf,
okay,
there was some stuff that got skipped.
Okay, see, my memory is fuzzy. Like, I'd have to have gone, gone back and rewatch. That's the thing.
Like,
and I do agree there was a lot in there for those light novels.
Like, I don't remember exactly, and I think there was even like 1 or 2 characters from the previous series that I don't know if they existed in the light novels as well. Like, I'm pretty fuzzy on that as well, to be honest, but I think the general populace probably doesn't mind a reboot. Like, I in the end, I was kind of like, yeah, like, just give me a season 3. But then, you know what? If it means they're gonna do it all, then sure. But then I'm always kind of worried that they won't adapt it all too.
And that's the thing of how long it'll take and stuff like that, because we only know, I guess, of the 1 season at the moment. And then the other question mark is they're busy with so many other animes they put out throughout the year. And the other thing I was thinking of is Trigun I was okay with because, yeah, that was from before Blu-ray and stuff like that. That was early odds. But in my mind, you have Spice and Wolf, like even Bartender was in that gray zone in the mid, it was 2006, but Spice and Wolf was kind of like the beginning of the Blu-ray era and stuff like that. And they put those out on Blu-ray. So that's why someone was like, And I'm still loving what I'm seeing on screen when I watch and stuff like that. So even if you had watched the previous, it's still great.
Yeah. Like, I still own that show. It's so good. But you mentioned Trigun, and I think I kind of wish they did a full adaptation of Trigun and not let it be whatever it's turning out to be. But then I know that this iteration is very well received, so it's fine.
For Trigun, they went the route of reimagining and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For that.
I don't know what they kept. Did they keep any of the storylines from the manga?
To a degree.
Or is it just uncharted territory?
To a degree. They kind of mixed and matched with their own vision and stuff like that. But there was stuff from the manga. It's just their own spin on it, so to speak, it felt like.
Yeah, because I don't mind deviating from the source material if the end product's good. And so far as we can see, it's good. So, I'll live.
It's just interesting to see what they've been bringing back and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, it's like they're coming even closer and closer to things that we're just going to redo this. And it's like, okay, that's intriguing.
Yes, it is.
And it's like, obviously someone out there thought, you know what, we can bring back Spice and Wolf. And it was just an intriguing choice and stuff like that. But it's still fun to watch.
Yeah, hello best girl, man.
Well, there's my radar anyway.
It was hot.
But the other one, I was thinking, funny enough too, when I was out shopping, I was getting the Legend of Zelda. They were at Uniqlo or whatever. The new T-shirts and stuff like that, the graphic tees, and I happened to go by and I saw something interesting because the big series, and I haven't watched it all, that I know they're promoting on Crunchyroll, which is the one I'm guessing they're involved too because they're actively promoting is Kaiju number 8.
Yeah.
And Kaiju number 8, which was interesting when I was out getting my Zelda T-shirts, I noticed that what was it? I happened to go by a Hot Topic, and I saw they had the main image for Kaiju number 8 in there as it's debuting. And then I noticed at Uniqlo that this month they have their own unique designs of graphic tees based on Kaiju number 8. And I'm just thinking to myself, that's interesting because they're just getting out that merch as these shows are coming out and they're promoting. And it's almost like we're kind of at Japan, you know what I mean? Where it's like, guess what? We're going to make you guys buy all this other stuff too, not just show you the show, right?
Yeah.
So some of the machine is coming over.
There's the media mix again. Anyway, just settling back in. But there's what's on my radar, and we'll talk about other people, Mo and Amy's radars in the near future. But there you go. We've been at this for a little while, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have the rest of the day to get to enjoy. So maybe we should call it for now, and hopefully we'll be back on it pretty quickly. Maybe it could be as early as later this week. So it was nice getting back behind the microphones again after a couple months. Thanks for the time. I know it was badly put together, right? Sorry, that's on me.
It's all good.
Yeah, thank you. But thanks for the time, guys.
It's always nice to record.
It always is. We have to figure out a proper schedule with the way all our lives kind of collide. I know work has been busy. One thing to bring up, and I promised I bring up something concerning work, because at a point, obviously, I never hid the fact I work at the nearby casino from here. We talked a few months ago about ITZY, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay, over the weekend, as this weekend has gone, the Gala Grand opening of Great Canadian Casino Resort Toronto has been going on. So, back-to-back concerts by Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton happened on Friday and Saturday, respectively, and it was a good atmosphere. I'm going to tell you that now.
Yeah,
just walking through the place as those things happened. And we mentioned ITZY. ITZY's set to do a concert on June 28th, Friday night. That's so a little over almost 2 months from now.
I think they added a second show on the 29th.
Yes, they did. I wasn't aware of it. I'll be honest. I wasn't aware of it. I heard it happened in rather short order too. It's just, which tells you at times how it would have been nice to at least know that was going on too. Right. I wasn't aware of it until a few days ago.
Oh,
when I talked with some colleagues in our security department.
I couldn't get tickets, so I'm just gonna wait out to see if seats get released the week before, because that's what usually will happen for Ticketmaster shows. But we'll see.
I've seen pictures of the concert venue. I've not seen where the concert will take place, by the way. So it's an intimate. It's actually a fairly intimate looking venue, 5,000 seater, right?
Remind me, do you have to pay for parking at Woodbine?
No,
okay.
It's free. Parking is free around the complex.
Okay,
it's just depending on where you park, it could be a bit of a bottleneck to get out. But that's just the way sometimes it is when it gets busy, right?
Yeah.
So it's there, and as I said, full disclosure, this is where I work. So when I talked about my call, one of the people, colleague at work, it's somebody I supervise. It's a dealer. I work as a casino supervisor. So, and the person I was talking about who lost his phone is one of my dealers who I supervise. So that's where it all starts to come together. And further part of this disclosure, where I work sits minutes away from the Anime North complex. Just go a little further north on 27. So I wasn't kidding when I said I pass by Anime North on an almost daily basis. So that's but as I said, that's a full disclosure. So and I would like I'd like to think that a handful of the fandom would have been curious about other things in the Asian pop culture sphere. So there it is. ITZY is still set for the end of June. I know that's very much marked collectively on our calendars at work, as for various reasons. So anyway, that's as much as we want to talk about right now and have time to talk about, because let's face it, we're approaching 2 hours. Regular episodes these days in recent times have not gone 2 hours. But as I said, after 2 months, there's just been a lot to talk about. And the conversation will always continue. So if you want to get one in on the conversations, AnimeRoundtable.com is our Linktree page, is our splash page. You'll get the links to our Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and hopefully Twitch, which, we're back to square one on setting that up, but AnimeRoundtable.com. And of course, at its heart, we're a podcast. So any reviews you can give us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I know Google Podcasts is pretty much gone. Would be appreciated. But as I said, we'll continue this conversation hopefully pretty soon. So thanks for spending a couple hours with us on this Sunday, late morning, now early afternoon. And go out and enjoy the rest of it. Thanks for listening.